is about values and identity. Who or what is it that develops? Is it ethnic or tribal groups, a religious sect, a social class, a nation, a civilization, or a world? What kind of people are we? How are we alike, and how do we differ? Today's developing countries have different roots, come from different cultures and religions, and face different circumstances than advanced countries did when the later developed. Issues of identity therefore lie at the root of the development process. Identity perspectives highlight the separate and common values of a globalizing world. Advanced countries, which are mostly Western, hold advantage and both help and hinder the development of poor countries, which are mostly non-Western. Other identities see free markets as degrading and blasphemous in the eyes of their religion. Since World War II, countries in Asia, which exploited global markets early, fared best, while those in Latin America, which pursued more protectionist policies, floundered. This is best shown by the East Asian miracle, where there was an unprecedented economic growth and development in East Asia between 1965 and 2010. That, as a result, formed export-led development strategies that exploited economic competition and open international markets, in comparison to Latin American countries that, for the most part, adopted import substitution strategies that counted on protecting domestic markets for development.
Hong Kong, Singapore, Taiwan, and South Korea were given the name the Four Tigers of East Asia because alone, these four countries' economic growth doubled the rest of Asia and also grew 3 times faster than all of Latin America. Much of this extreme growth was due to their movement towards export-led development. Because of the success of export-led developments, these 4 countries were able to reach the same development status as developed countries. Asian high performers like the Four Tigers of East Asia geared their developments to foreign markets. Because much of their attention was toward foreign markets, they also intervened in domestic markets to achieve international competitiveness. They intervened with domestic markets by choosing to focus on export-led developments to exploit foreign markets instead of implementing import substitution policies that protected domestic markets. To be able to exploit foreign markets, the Four Tigers of East Asia created export zones that were on the low end of the technology spectrum. They did this to take advantage of the low labor costs. Many of the exports these zones focused on in the beginning were toys, black and white televisions, and radios. Over time, they shifted their exports to heavy manufacturing industries. They were involved in the production of steel and shipbuilding. This strategy required a disciplined bureaucracy which China possessed, as opposed to Latin America, who did not have similar stable governments in place. Although the Four Tigers of East Asia experienced phenomenal economic growth because of their export-led development, it had its limits. The first of these limits was rapid expansion of international markets. This is because many countries saw that massive economic growth that Asia experienced and wanted to reciprocate the same economic growth. As a result, trade markets became crowded with other countries who were putting all of their resources into export development. The second limit was that the increasing innovation of technology. Asian bureaucracies were mainly known for imitating technology industries and were unable to push innovations in technology to create new industries. The third and final limit was in the Asian financial market. This is the least efficient sector for most Asian countries. This is because governments dominated credit markets through postal saving systems and dispersed loans to help fund industrial and technology developments.
There are many things that can lead to the development of one's identity. Today's world can be described as a legacy of deep and powerful historical forces that emerged around 500 years ago and produced a developed world economy dominated by Western European institutions, ideas, and power. There are many different perspectives on how and why these nations developed so quickly. The realist perspective attributes Europe's ascendance primarily to demography, geography, and decentralized distribution of power. Basically, this means that Europe had a greater diversity in socioeconomics compared to other regions such as Asia, whose largest power was China. China had a very different economic structure than countries such as Great Britain. China was largely based off rice farming, which did not take up much space or exhaust current resources in surrounding areas, giving them virtually no reason to expand. The realist perspective attributes Europe's ascendance primarily to demography, geography, and the decentralized distribution of power. Technology was an outside factor that multiplied the output of human and animal labor. Its impact, although initially disruptive, was generally progressive over the long run. Trade was another aspect that helped Western Europe develop quicker than others. Trade helped institutionalize the division of labor at the international level and create the necessity to lower transaction costs. as the liberal perspective focuses mostly on technology, the division of labor, and institutional innovations to drive development. The identity perspective focuses more on the ideas and morals that led people to think in a developmental way. The identity perspective attributes the rapid development of Europe relative to the rest of the world largely to the Renaissance, Reformation, and Enlightenment ideas that inspired the Protestant ethic of scientific, technological, and commercial achievement. For example, prior to the Reformation, the activities of innovation and making money were not looked on as worthy callings in Europe or anywhere else in the world. Protestantism made such callings acceptable. Not surprisingly from this perspective, Protestant countries led the process of modernization. Britain launched the Industrial Revolution, and the United States, its offspring, pioneered the subsequent Information Revolution. As the realist perspective focuses on economics, the liberal perspective technology, and the identity perspective focuses more on ideas and morals. The critical theory perspective believes that globalization and development are results of powerful, interconnected historical forces and social processes connected with Western growth and imperialism that benefit first world people at the expense of people in the developing world. At the foreign policy level, capitalist governments use multinational corporations to rig foreign markets. Developing countries lose control of national autonomy and culture at the domestic level. Finally, at the individual level, indigenous people are marginalized, meaning that these people who are natives and of these cultures are being forgotten and being treated as if they're unimportant.